have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it! My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
It's time to buckle up for making sense of the madness.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and my guest, for those who have followed me over the years, really needs no introduction, but he certainly needs more accolades, and especially more attention for the work that he has been doing year in and year out throughout the world to expose a certain group known as Bilderberg. And he is Bilderback from an adventure that also included a builder boat. It's not every year you get the builder boat, ladies and gentlemen. So Dan, for those that don't know about you, pressfortruth.ca is the website. You have been in the independent journalist game now for, I want to say, just about 20 years. And if you're not, you're approaching that 20th anniversary. First off, how the hell are you? And what were your impressions of Bilderberg 2025? Because I certainly have a lot of thoughts. And seeing as not only the mainstream and almost no coverage whatsoever, which was expected, but the alternative media had extremely sparse and in most cases really superficial coverage of this as well. So take it away.
Yeah, that aspect is a little unfortunate to see, that it's kind of dropped off the radar for a lot of independent media, but certainly not for me. You know, you nailed it. 19 years. My first Bilderberg was in 2006, and I've been going pretty much consecutively since 2012, other than the, COVID years where I was a prisoner in my own country. Sweden was an interesting experience, a little bit unlike anyone I've had before. Normally, we get pretty harassed by the police, and to my surprise, the police in Sweden were rather nice, actually, surprisingly. So that was nice. But yeah, I had a good trip. I had a couple of good confrontations. We spoke with a few Bilderberg members and were able to get some good information out of them. And it's you never really know what you're going to get until you go, obviously. And I'm just getting back now yesterday, so happy to be back, happy to get back into the flow of things. But I would say it was a pretty successful trip. Got to speak with Peter Thiel, got to speak with a few other big names, got to film like definitive proof of people like Chrystia Freeland, which is a big one for a lot of Canadians. And I'm pretty happy with the way it went this year.
So, as far as this year and its coverage, first of all, you've kind of seen the transformation of Bilderberg from something that was never really acknowledged and only the quote-unquote tinfoil hat crowd talked about, to at least now it is acknowledged. And if you bring it up, people, at least with their knowledge of the World Economic Forum, kind of understand the gravity of the situation. don't necessarily understand what's going on. That's why I really enjoyed Charlie Skelton's piece, which really summed up so much of what we know and what we don't know. Again, these, billionaires, their cohorts and their representatives out on a boat fine dining as the first bombs are being sent into Iran and then the counterstrikes in Tel Aviv. And of course, right now, one of the glaring absences that I saw this year, and I want to get your take on it because I do want to get into your Peter Thiel confrontation, which we covered here. David Petraeus wasn't there this year, and he has been a mainstay essentially since you've been covering it. And this was a guy, obviously, big part of the intel community, the Defense Department, former head of the CIA. I believe when he was going to Bilderberg, I mean, even last year, I believe he was still an attendee, and I want to say he was a steering guy. He was Kellogg, Brown, and Root. So, very steeped in U.S. defense, U.S. intel, the arms market, if you will, and strategic operations in the Middle East on a large scale as he really cut his teeth during the war of terror. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it is interesting that he isn't here. Anytime you see, Bilderberg members who are pretty much regulars all of a sudden disappear, it kind of makes you wonder, what they did to not necessarily be in the fold anymore. But I'm not suggesting that's the case with Petraeus. That guy is an interesting and busy guy. I mean, I remember one time, I think it was maybe the 2019 meeting. I get them all mixed up, but he ran from us, literally ran, and that guy can run. I remember having a hard time keeping up with him, myself for a guy of his age. It was pretty remarkable. But, just the fact that he wasn't there doesn't mean that war was off the table. Obviously one of the agendas was the Middle East, and we had this kind of Cold War turn hot right in the middle of the meeting. So that was interesting. My friend Josh Friedman actually managed to speak with a guy, I forget his name now, Gideon something. He questioned him about the Middle East topic, saying, you guys jumped, we've got Israel attacking Iran in the middle of this meeting. Surely that came up and you guys discussed that. And this guy was like, no, not really. None of the sessions changed because of that. We just stuck to the program. However, he did say we did talk a little bit about it in the corridors, which really proves kind of my point that I've often made, is that at Bilderberg, we're talking about 120 people on average, some of the world's most powerful and influential people. Well, I often say there's an inner circle within the inner circle. And, a lot of the real discussions and decisions that are going to affect the fate of the world are not necessarily done around the big table at the main session. And a lot of these conversations happen when, they're hanging out at the bar, for example, or they're taking a nice little boat ride. Those are the conversations where things get done. And this guy basically confirmed that, said, no, we didn't change the sessions in terms of the topic on Middle East just because Israel is attacking Iran. We stuck to the program, but we did talk about those types of things in the corridors. I was like, wow, that's definitive proof, that these kinds of topics are discussed, really, maybe not necessarily around the big table, but amongst each other in the hallways and at the bar and on the boat. And this is why it's of concerning. When you've got these kind of guys who have the ability to, put into the minds of the masses whatever they want, essentially, that's a great deal of power and influence. You got to look at what happened at Bilderberg in 2002. It was actually the Bilderberg meeting in 2002 where they started telling the members that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. And from that particular meeting, you had all these influential people then going out and putting this idea into the minds of the masses. And it didn't take much longer, a year later, and the U.S. was invading Iraq. And that whole thing was kind of hatched at Bilderberg. So to think that that could potentially happen again is not a stretch of the imagination. These guys are discussing war. These guys are discussing, how they're going to take take over the Middle East, essentially. And what's that's going to do to the economy? What's that, going to do all over the world, and how to manage that in the aftermath? Because as you know, Jason, order out of chaos is their modus operandi. And, these are the places where they discuss these things. You mentioned WEF. The president of the WEF was there, and he's like a nobody there, So, Davos is something to look at, but really it's not as exclusive and secretive as Bilderberg itself. I think that's apparent, when you see who's attending there.
So let's talk about that big table for a second, because I tend to agree with you. I think that the overall talking points are to set the narrative and the agenda, and the overall, I would say, where the conversation is supposed to go. So I don't want to call it controlled opposition, but let's call it the scope of what we're trying to do in the Middle East, and the scope of the opposition ideas between a Peter Thiel and an Eric Schmidt, both of who work heavily with the national security and defense apparatus and have throughout their careers. Just want to put that out there. And again, you talked about the core membership, that 20 to 25. My thoughts on Petraeus, putting on my let's say speculation hat, I don't even like calling it conspiracy hat, is that they knew that these attacks were going to happen during Bilderberg, and for whatever reason, he's operational. And he has to be somewhere for that. I will tend to think that, especially if next year he's back, right? As far as those side conversations, I think a great example would be the 2008 Bilderberg conference, where we were at the tail end of the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton and the Barack star. And it was there that Barack Obama just happened to ditch the entire press corps, leaving his press secretary on the plane, Robert Gibbs at the time, to tell everybody he was going to be in secret meetings during that weekend. And Bilderberg just happened to be at Chantilly, Virginia. Even better than that, the press had initially reported that they were meeting at Hillary Clinton's house. So they went there, and Hillary wasn't there either. So weird, man. So bizarre. And then I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, the year, I believe, in Portugal. You had Yuval Noah Harari just show up on the weekend to Bilderberg and give a speech at a Portugal university. Everybody go watch it. And now he's not on the official list. Barack Obama's not on the official list. Maybe they're not in the mainstay ballroom. Maybe they're not even on the Bilder boat when it's around. But maybe they are in those corridors or hotel suites with 2 or 3 of these individuals. And obviously, you talking about Thiel, some of those individuals now include Alex Karp, the Palantir crowd, and Anduril, the autonomous drone crowd that is hooked into Palantir so much. What did you think about that and kind of the moving, I wouldn't say changing of the guard, because Thiel's been there a while. I think he brought Karp in around 2016-17. So now Karp's almost a decade. But I think this might be Anderl's first appearance. We saw Sam Altman a couple years ago, hasn't been back. But they are bringing in more and more of the younger tech crowd.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really operates almost like a recruiting program at times, where they're going to invite into the fold the young and up and comers, and try to figure out who is going to be, worthy of bringing into the inner circle and who is not. And that's why I figure there's probably like maybe 60-70% of the people there who are not necessarily into anything nefarious or understand the overall agendas for a new world order, a one world government, a one world police system to police everybody who's going to have a problem with it. But certainly you do have that inner core. Now, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, you mentioned, interestingly enough, did leave the conference a little bit early. They leaving with their luggage and coming back like a day later. And I remember thinking at the time, like, pretty sure this probably has something to do with this whole Iran and Israel situation, because these are the two Palantir guys who are there in Stockholm, Sweden, in the middle of this thing. And I think maybe that's also why Peter Thiel looked very angry and militant when I confronted him. Not because of me, not necessarily because of the words I was saying, but because he had war on his mind. I mean, literally, this thing just went from cold to hot while we were there, and he booked out of there the following morning, pretty much for the whole day. So I think he had other things to deal with at that time, and just seeing him and Karp leave together and then come back like the next day, I was like, yeah, I think they're going to deal with this whole Palantir, Israel-Iran situation, which is very telling when you got all these, tech and industry, like war, industry leaders there meeting behind closed doors, discussing this stuff in secret. Obviously, this should be of grave concern to everyone when there's the type of things that could trigger World War III going on. And I, don't use that flippantly. Like, this is literally kind of what we're potentially facing here. So again, just the fact that those guys booked it out of there, for a whole day made me think, I'm pretty sure this has to do with what's happening in the Middle East. Make no mistake about that.
And before we move too far away from Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, I think we really do have to explain how integral Palantir has been, not just to United States intelligence, but the intelligence of the Five Eyes Alliance. And I'm sure that you've covered it. I'm sure that you've seen it. I've never seen Peter Thiel more uncomfortable than when he was questioned about the Lavender AI system that was used to target and then actually, carry out operations against quote-unquote terrorists that were labeled by AI, of which we don't really know those criteria, and over 30,000 of them. I would go even further to say that the Israeli operation with the quote-unquote pagers, it's not very clear how that operation took place and if they were really an intercepted bunch or it is built into the hardware where they can electronically detonate these things when they want in civilian areas. First of all, what did you think about the response of Thiel, who looked, again, I've never seen him look maybe more, I'd say he looked 3 times as more uncomfortable than when you were just questioning him about Epstein and other things, because he actually had to respond. In fact, if you go back and watch that, she also asked him about our satellite systems, and he had totally forgotten the second part of the question. It might have been satellite systems or something like that, because he was so befuddled. He didn't answer the question other than to say that we're not going to tell Israel what to do because I don't want to act like our policy's not coming out of Cambridge. That's your whole gig, bro. What are you talking about? You're taking all of this information and then you're having meetings with all these people about foreign policy and what they should be doing. It was such a bad cop-out. So what did you think about that confrontation? And then again, AI and warfare, that's Bilderberg bread and butter at this point.
Yeah, that was a brilliant question that girl asked. It was a 2-part question, and he almost like tried to answer the more difficult question first, which usually they would try to avoid, and then he ended up forgetting the second question entirely. And when you watch him just fumble over his words, like he clearly was put on the spot, very much so there. So I would have certainly loved to have gotten, a similar, response. Anything out of them would have been fantastic. But obviously, sometimes, their silence can potentially speak louder than words. And with him just looking as militant and angry as he did, it looked like I was getting under his skin a little bit. And obviously, when you're bringing up questions of Jeffrey Epstein, surveillance of the, using this technology against the American people, which is maybe what it was always intended for, maybe not. But at any rate, he's getting the contracts for that. So that's why I wanted to put him on the hot seat and managed to do that. It's kind of interesting how it came about, actually, for a guy has no problem with monitoring, the people of the world. He's only got like a couple of bodyguards there with him. And one of his bodyguards screwed up pretty bad, I must say. because let me just tell you how this came about, because it's kind of interesting. I was just in the right place at the right time, really. I was there, and I heard behind me, about like 10 feet behind me, a guy walk up to one of the cops and say, my client is about to walk in here, and he doesn't have his lanyard on. Is that going to be a problem? Or, and the cop just like, well, what's your client's name? And this guy's like, well, it's Peter Thiel. So I'm sitting there like going, whoa, wait, what? And so I follow these guys. And the cop says, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. You go ahead. So I follow these guys all the way back around the back alley behind the building. His two bodyguards, who screwed up royally by saying that a little too close to my ear, followed them all the way back there. And sure enough, boom, out pops Peter Thiel. And it was like, okay, it's go time. It's just me, Peter Thiel, and his two bodyguards. So I just took the opportunity to jump all over it. People often, say, oh, you could have asked this, you could have said that. And believe me, there's a lot of things I wish I could have said, but sometimes it's hard to come up with things on the spot when it's happening so quickly. You're not, 2 minutes earlier, I wasn't expecting to, confront Peter Thiel necessarily, right? So I kind of wish I came up with a few other things to say, but hammering him on the Palantir, hammering him on the Jeffrey Epstein connections is what I ended up going with. And yeah, he was sweating it, and it's putting him on the hot seat is exactly what people need to do. That's why when he was leaving, I kind of had an opportunity to confront him a bit again to say, look, people obviously want you confronted. That clip has gone viral. And the reason why is because, you need to answer to the American people and to the people of the world for what you're doing here. And the only way you're going to get to confront someone like Peter Thiel face to face is by going to something like Bilderberg to, get those kind of opportunities. So like I said, you never know what you're going to get before you go. But I managed to be in the right place at the right time. And I got the big one, Peter Thiel. So yeah, I was, pretty happy with how that came out.
And, I don't think it could be overemphasized about his importance. Those that want to downplay it, those that don't really understand his significance. Number one, this guy was very much a huge part of the push for the second Trump administration. And he abandoned Trump in the first administration. I want to make that very clear. He was his technology secretary, left at the tail end of that first administration, and then essentially stabbed him in the back by not questioning the election and really not supporting him in that. However, if you don't think that there are all sorts of backdoor dealings on all sides, J.D. Vance is like the ultimate Thiel moment. As soon as Vance was announced, you knew Thiel was behind this campaign. And then, on top of that, that last tail end of the Trump podcast tour and acolytes, if you're buying the Barron Trump story, I'm sorry. The Barron could be a very smart guy, could have talked to his dad about Theo Vaughn and all those other things. 100% Thiel. I mean, Thiel even showed up on the Rogan podcast probably a month or two before as the Trump tour was going, and everybody knew it was going to end Rogan style, and talked about Epstein there as if he had no business relationship with the guy. He did. Okay? He did. And, it's just, what's your 40,000-foot view on the blind spots that some of the, not the folks that just came in on the MAGA train. I'm not talking about them. The ones that woke up a little bit in 2016 or woke up a little bit during the COVID-19 84 nightmare. But the people you and I have known for the better part of those 15, 20 years that now have to do these mental gymnastics to just not call out what's right in front of our faces. The Musk transhumanism, the Andrew Tate trafficking girls, the Conor McGregor brutal, violent serial rapist shouldn't be at the inauguration. The Thiel Palantir thing. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, man, it's really sad to see, the way a lot of people in alternative media and just in general have gone on the Trump train, and have been completely duped and are now, like as you said, perfectly said, mental gymnastics is what they have to do to justify this. And what then you have the ones who don't do the mental gymnastics. They just flat out say, "This isn't what I voted for. This isn't what I thought I was going to get." No, yeah, this is exactly what you voted for. This is exactly what happens when you have a part in getting these guys selected. Like, you can't just run tail now and turn around and say, "Oops," it's like, no, you had a part in all of this essentially when you vote these guys in. So yeah, it's a really sad state of affairs. But I mean, I really wish people would learn their lesson after time and time again of seeing this type of stuff. In Canada, for example, like, wow. Mark Carney being a completely unelected, selected, member of Bilderberg to be placed into the position of prime minister was so blatant. It's like, guys, if you can't see this for what it is, you're completely blind to the true agendas here. So, for anybody who doesn't know, Mark Carney's been attending Bilderberg. He's been to a whole bunch of these things. All of a sudden, Justin Trudeau here in Canada decides to resign. They appoint a new Liberal leader to run in the election. And who is it? Mark Carney. Lo and behold, the guy who I predicted at last year's meeting would probably run for prime minister and would probably win if, Bilderberg allows it. And sure enough, he gets in. So with that kind of an example, it's blatantly obvious. But with Trump, they got this populist, television star who's really kind of managed to get people behind him, and it's remarkable. But I really hope that people will see it for what it is now. Obviously, with the warmongering, with the flip-flopping, with doing every single thing he said he wouldn't do, with WMD's 2.0 going into overdrive. It's like, guys, it's blatantly obvious. This guy is not here to take down the deep state. He's, helping it happen. Whether he knows that he's a part of this or not is something that we could debate or talk about on a whole nother show.
Let's talk just about some. Listen, because I don't want to be Donnie Doom and Gloom, okay? And I think, again, I've got to be Ronnie reality. I think there is a difference between him and a zombie Biden administration, or him and a Kamala Harris administration. I'll be the first to give him the accolades for pardoning the J6ers, for getting Ross Ulbricht out of prison. I really don't love how he handled the Assange situation, but then again, you go back and you look at how Assange has essentially cut a deal during the Biden administration. Nobody says a word on either side, even though it was a hot political topic and really one that superseded Ross Ulbricht. And no one's had to answer for that, right? So you wonder.
Well, the Ross Ulbricht thing seemed like throwing everybody the little bone. Like that wasn't really a difficult one for him to do, to get, libertarian-minded people on his side, because the kid had already done, 15, almost 20 years in prison. And, him releasing him was kind of like, a way to get people on board to say, yes, this is our guy. Honestly, I think that was an easy bone for him to throw to the libertarians to soak it up.
There are other, I like Bobby Kennedy. I don't like his stance in the Middle East. What I've seen with HHS, firing the hate and lies shots board, those are all good things. Talking about the red dye. If anything, at least the narrative has been disrupted. At the same time, it doesn't matter if the narrative's disrupted if we go into an actual World War III scenario. And this is my thing. We can praise the guy for the good stuff, but you got to hammer him for the bad stuff. You don't acquiesce to evil. And it's not just evil. You don't just bend the knee to something you disagree with fervently. You both bash it out in the arena of ideas. And once that happens, people can weigh in once they have the information. The MAGA heads, the diehard, that's not what they want. They want hashtags and lunacy. And I'm just not down with that. It's like, look, right now with Israel, first of all, those were some of the biggest stumbling blocks of Trump, not just Israel, but Ukraine, okay? In the sense that one of the reasons I got behind the guy, again, this time around, was he was going around saying, before I even get in there, we're going to be able to stop the Ukraine-Russia war, and we're going to reign in the Middle East. 30 days into the presidency, when that became apparent it wasn't going to happen, we were in the danger zone. When he starts like tweeting or truth socialing out AI-generated videos of him and Bibi on or on beachfront property, that's insane. You don't reward any nation for causing aggression against another nation. And I'm not even just talking about, obviously, the Palestinian situation. If you don't realize that the Greater Israel Project is real, they've told you it's real. During the last 2+ years now, there have been, I wouldn't even call them limited attacks in Lebanon on a scale you can't imagine. Beirut is a mostly secular place, people. And it's been bombed into oblivion. People don't realize that. Syria gets overthrown in this time period. And now we're here, right? I want to believe that Tulsi Gabbard doesn't want war. I want to believe that Trump doesn't want war. But all these actions, it doesn't matter what they want. If they don't have the power to stop these things, what good is the executive branch at all? Because I'm one of those guys, Dan, that thinks they tried to kill him in Butler, thinks they tried to, kill him again. There are some people that don't believe that. Now, look, if the evidence suggested that, and I've watched all the videotapes that are available, I think it's actually very weird that we literally don't have hundreds of videos during that day at a Trump rally. We've got 5. It's very bizarre, everybody. But how do you deal with that other end of the spectrum, right? That it's not so much TDS mainstream style. It's TDS that everything he's doing is purposely for the deep state, because I don't believe that narrative either. And I would say you probably have a unique perspective, because although you're not a United States citizen, you get a lot of the pop culture and the feel, but you don't have the same kind of investment that people do here in the States.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it sounds funny for somebody like me to say this, but I hate to politics. I don't even want to, pay. I wish I could not pay attention to it, but it's kind of, all part of what I do. But, I'd rather just, ignore it and live my life and focus on my family and building a garden. But, this is the things we have to expose. And when you have guys like Trump right now, not necessarily listening to his own, intelligence, who would suggest, for example, that Iran doesn't necessarily have a nuclear program that they're working on, to just say that is, something that she's wrong. And I'm just gonna go by my instinct here. I think people should have a little bit of a problem with that, and that's kind of what it seems like they're going on right now, is just instincts and feelings. When you look at the Bush administration era, they had to fabricate evidence. They had to come up with some sort of excuse to invade Iraq with, all sorts of nonsense BS. Whereas now, in this current administration, it's just kind of a take our word for it sort of a situation. That should be of concern, I think, to people, that there's no really definitive proof. It's that whole meme of Bibi holding the bomb. Oh, we're 1 month away. We're just weeks away. He's been saying that since 1995. So, I mean, how much longer are they going to do this? Now, as I just heard today, the Wall Street Journal just announced that apparently Trump's going to make the final decision on whether or not they're going to engage in attacking Iran along with Israel and try to bomb this nuclear facility with a 30,000-pound bomb sometime in the next 2 weeks. Apparently, they're heading to Geneva, Switzerland tomorrow to meet with some, Iranian officials and EU leaders who are going to discuss a de-escalation process over the next 2 weeks. But this thing is, so ongoing and rolling out right now, it's really tough to say where it's going to go. The situation is changing by the time, well, we're live right now, but I mean, by the time some people are watching this, the whole thing could be completely different. So it's really tough to say where this thing is going to go. They've been, like I've got videos talking about how Trump is warning about all this stuff like 13 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago. It just keeps happening. So I'm not so sure that it's necessarily going to go down in the next 2 weeks. Maybe this is just all part of that kind of, propaganda again, but maybe it isn't. It does seem like it's a little more real this time because, as you and I have been saying for many years now, there is an agenda to take over the Middle East. They have to provide some sort of an excuse to be able to go in there on like some kind of humanitarian mission to save the world. And it looks like right now, Iran could be the trigger point for, dare I say it, World War III. I don't want to, sound alarmist, but this is kind of what we're dealing with now. So you got Iraq, you got Afghanistan, you got, Syria and Iran all on the table. Who was that guy who said like, oh, in 7 years or whatever?
Wesley Clark, General Wesley Clark is still around.
The memo.
Isn't that really the weird paradox though? That there are so many people now that are talking about 9/11. TMZ, for instance, just put out for free. I mean, they made it last year, but their United 23 documentary, where it is clear they lied to all of us about 9/11. If you have not seen it yet, Dan, it is a must-watch. It really couples well with what I put in 2008's Fabled Enemies about that plane and expands upon it and shows you there were weapons planted on planes. There may have been people in the electronic bays of the planes that weren't the hijackers. That one of the supposed hijackers on this plane was a man dressed in a burqa, that they brought a small child with them on the plane. A lot of new details in this documentary. And the reason I bring that up is because just 3 weeks ago, Senator Ron Johnson is talking about Barry Jennings and Dylan Avery's 7 documentary on Building 7 in front of this large crowd. So many of these people that have come around, if they didn't come around during the first Trump run during the COVID 1984 nightmare, came around to 9/11. People like Michael Flynn will even question 9/11 in public now, and it seems to be the basis. And yet you still find some of these people, we need to go into Iran. Like, Loomer is one of them. And I know Loomer loves to be edgy and throw herself into whatever arena, and it's worked out for her over the years. But she's questioned 9/11, yet she has no problem whatsoever, just like we need to go to war with Iran. And if you don't want to go to war with Iran, apparently you're being paid by Qatar. Hey, no one's paying Jason Bermas, and I give me some of that sweet, sweet Qatari money. I promise you, I'm not going to say anything different because there's nothing different to say. I don't like the Middle Eastern regimes or the morality of some of the culture or the way that they treat women or the radicalism of some of their religious fanatics. I also don't want to bomb them into the ground. I don't want to be militarily involved there. There can be two different things. But what are your thoughts on that? Because that is another one of those things where you see all these, quote unquote, alt media right wingers posting stuff about 9/11, and then they're just like, yeah, let's just do Iran. We shouldn't have been in Afghanistan. Shouldn't have been in Iraq. Shouldn't have been involved in any of this Middle Eastern nonsense, but let's do it again.
Yeah, again, more kind of mental gymnastics. I'm not familiar with that new documentary. I haven't seen it yet, but this is just the more mental gymnastics. And if you don't understand, the ultimate agenda of taking over the Middle East, one kind of nation at a time, you're just going to fall in line with this, war hawk talk, like Loomer has been doing, and unfortunately she has a massive following of people who are listening to this and who are probably, agreeing, with her. Now, whether she's on the payroll, maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if that is going on with some of these, like MAGA influencers. because yeah, they have to. Some of them have to be paid off to be saying some of this stuff.
Well, she's the one going around saying all the other people are paid off. Like, she's got a whole thread on Theo Vaughn right now because Theo Vaughn is talking about Israel and Gaza and all these things. And I get it. She goes after those with massive followings, etc. But if you're going to accuse, like, I get she's gone after Candace Owens, saying that apparently she's paid by Qatar. I don't even necessarily love everything Candace Owens. I have a lot of problems with Candace Owens. I think that you could realize that. Theo Vaughn, fun to listen to, sure wouldn't bank on his political statements. But like you said, it's this weird influencer culture where it's all about mudslinging and narrative projection and so much less about the truth. And that's the problem, because when you and I are trying to combat the great narrative, I like to call it now, the great narrative of the day, we're trying to do so with truthful information. Yet there are so many people that slide away from that and try to use the same Machiavellian or Alinsky-like tools as the quote-unquote enemy.
Yeah, I that's probably always going to be a thing, and unfortunately, but that's why, I mean, all we can do, Jason, I suppose, is lead by example as best as we can, continue to bang out the truthful information, and hopefully, the algorithms will start bending towards truth, and we'll start, like recognizing that kind of thing. I wouldn't hold my breath on that, but it's all we can do is continue to bang out the information as best we can. And, I just hope people are seeing it for what it is, recognizing the influencers who are being manipulative and potentially paid. And then those other ones who aren't, who don't have any kind of major corporate backing, like myself, like yourself, and who are just trying to put the information out there through documentary films and videos, wearing our heart on our sleeve and just saying, this is how I see it. And hopefully, people are going to start seeing it as the way we do too. So that's all we can do, really, is lead by example, by sharing the information that we found over our 19 years of doing this. I don't know how long Laura Loomer's been in the game. I don't know about this Theo Vaughn guy. I know she talks about like this Ian Carroll guy who seems to have kind of popped up out of nowhere. A lot of these people are kind of relatively new to the scene, but the algorithms are pumping them. So hopefully that's going to change. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
I want to talk algorithms, and I want to talk about your return to YouTube and James Corbett's return to YouTube as well. And honestly, I for the first time in 5 years, now I've been demonetized for about 5 years as well. And I've had the channel taken 5 different times, fought him on X, got it back. First time in 5 years, I'm having subscribers. I've gained probably about, I don't know, folks, probably about 1,000 subscribers in the last 2 months. And when I say none, I literally, that's 800% better than I've done. I've been on total lock. All of a sudden, maybe not. Now, I'm not being monetized, but at the same time, I am reaching new people. It's weird. And like you said, you were able to get your channel back. James Corbett was able to get his channel back. I'm not sure if you're monetized. I'm not. I tried getting it back. I think that I'd actually have to talk to some human beings to make that happen, which maybe is even a possibility at this point. I look at other people like Jimmy Dore now. I'm good friends with Kurt Metzger. We text all the time. They're talking about a lot of the things that were on my channel 5 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. That were on your channel 10 years ago. Even Rogan's return after the Spotify run. Things are said on that channel I would never get away with. So, what are your thoughts on what's going on YouTube? Are they trying to compete again, or is it a false sense of hope? Is it just maybe they cranked the algorithm down just a little bit after Wojcicki died of cancer? What are your thoughts?
It does seem like there's something new going on in the back end of YouTube. Like there's, some new people involved who probably are looking at how it works and say, wait a minute, these guys were a part of this blacklist system that should never have been a thing. and therefore we're all being reinstated. Now, obviously, my guard has been up. Like the moment I got the channel back, again, for me, it's happened a couple of times. They took it away and then gave it back, and then took it away and gave it back, and it's so bizarre. It's like a relationship with somebody, and you've just had a divorce or something, but you've got kids together. Like it's a bizarre scenario where, yeah, I'm back, but I don't necessarily want to like fully promote the thing, because maybe they're just going to take it all away again in a couple of months from now. But like when I did get the channel back, I too was bleeding subscribers, not getting anything new. And in fact, in the years leading up to my termination, I was kind of capped at a certain number. However, in the last week or so, I seem to have turned that around with my Bilderberg coverage. I'm up like 5,000 subscribers in just the last week. So something's happening on the back end where they're clearly lightening up a bit. Now, I do not want to be used as a cog in the machine. If this is YouTube deciding that, hey, you know what, now it's of benefit to us to have guys like James Corbett and Josh Sigurdson, Dan Dicks, all these guys return, well, then maybe this is something I need to be aware of and I need to, stay back from. But at this stage in the game, it's a double-edged sword. It's something that I do want to use to be able to continue to expose all the corruption that I'm finding in the world. So at first I had a hard time with how to deal with this. Am I going to move forward with continuing to post there? And eventually I decided, you know what, why the heck not? And the frustrating thing is, I still to this day can't count how many people are saying, you're back. Wow, man. You've been gone for like 4 or 5 years. It's so cool to see you back. It's like, no, I didn't go anywhere. I've been banging out daily videos and content all the time. You just happen to not be checking anywhere else other than YouTube. So I also do see it as an opportunity. Like you don't often get second chances in life. So those people need to recognize that this might happen again. This channel right here that you're watching, Jason Bermas could be gone. And if you're not following him on these other places, Rumble, Rockfin, BitChute, whatever, you're just going to think that he disappeared someday when the censorship does come down again and the hammer comes down. And certainly it will. We're going to be on the chopping block pretty much for the rest of our lives. So I see it as a second opportunity to kind of raise awareness about the importance of these decentralized platforms out there. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mostly release content, but sometimes I'll release trailers and say, hey, if you want to watch the rest of this, go on over to these other places, because if I disappear one day, that's where I'll be. So hopefully people do that for you as well.
Well, let me just say this. I share your sentiment. And, I watched Corbett read that email from you about those second chances. And just let me expand upon that. You use the tools you're given. We all knew when we were on YouTube and it was monetized that it was owned by Google, the largest search engine in the world. We all knew that it had Defense Department contracts. We all knew that, because, again, Google had to compete with YouTube before it bought it out, that there was already shadow banning of channels going on, even before monetization, etc., before you could even live stream on this platform. We all knew what we were getting into. At the same time, just like you said, when you disappear from this platform, people think that you disappear from the world. Unfortunately, you can go to every other platform and there's still going to be just a huge chunk of people that are clicking on YouTube to watch the cat videos, and they like your stuff too. And really, the dark irony of that is that's our target audience. It's not the people that keep returning. No, we love you guys too. We need you to have the information. A lot of you guys not only inform your friends or your family, but then you get involved in politics, in media, in journalism, in writing, vlogging, and on this. You become those on-the-ground info warriors. That doesn't happen without a spark before you get there, that wake-up moment. That doesn't happen without somebody watching the YouTube shorts of Fluffy the cat, on the string all wacky and playing the guitar. And then it scrolls up to Dan Dicks chasing down Peter Thiel, asking him about Epstein. You're like, well, wait, I've seen that guy. I've just read about Pal. Oh, We need that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, we certainly don't want to just preach to the choir. We don't want to just kind of be in an echo chamber of just the people who already know this stuff. Reaching new people every day is absolutely the goal. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that's where you're going to find them, is on YouTube. And there's like, I've been doing this 19 years. There's like a whole new generation of kids and people watching this kind of stuff who are completely new to it, who have never even heard of this kind of stuff, and they're on YouTube. Like you said, that's where they're going for their daily entertainment. And if that's where they need to come across one of my videos or one of your videos, then so be it. Like you said, we're going to use this technology to our advantage as best we can. And that's the fact of the matter. That's where the people are who we need to reach the most. So that's another reason why I am going to continue to use it to my advantage as much as I can. What is it? 275,000 subscribers is not something to just, shake off and ignore. This is an opportunity for us to reach new people, and hopefully that's what's happening. And I just got 5,000 subscribers in the last week, simply because of heading out to Sweden and covering Bilderberg, and hopefully this momentum continues. And these are new people who are going to look at the archives, who are going to use the search feature to say, what did he have to say about this topic? What does he think about this guy? Well, all you have to do is use the search feature, and you can find what myself or Jason has said about these things over the last couple of decades, really. It's that double-edged sword, and it's an opportunity that we shouldn't squander. And I'm glad to see guys like James kind of embracing it. I wasn't sure if he would, but thankfully he is, because he understands too. This is an opportunity, and there's new people that we have to reach. It's crunch time.
Listen,
it's beyond crunch time.
It's 2025. Every single one of us, every single day, dances with the digital devil. So you might as well learn how to tango, brother. Dan Dicks, pressfortruth.ca. You can also follow him over at Dan Dicks PFT, Dan Dicks PFT, over on X. Dan, what would you like to leave the audience with, my friend?
Well, I mean, I guess there's could be people who are watching this who are wondering if this is something that they could get involved in, and that also, Jason, is the goal here, is to hopefully inspire other people to do something like what we do. And in this day and age, all you need really is this little thing that pretty much everybody has in their pockets to be able to do this. It's not like the days where you used to have millions of dollars. You would need a satellite dishes and a editing van and all this kind of stuff. You don't need all that. You can get a website pretty much for free. You can use the tools, the cameras that you already have in your pocket. And if you're on the fence about this, just do what we did and dive headfirst right in there and give it a shot. And when you act with integrity, you just wear your heart on your sleeve and you let the truth, speak. Well, good things are gonna happen. So I would encourage anybody who's watching this and might be inspired about how could I ever cover Bilderberg? How could I ever have a show where I interview people? Just start doing it, people, because we need more people to jump in on this and to help guys like myself and you, Jason.
Dan Dicks, killing it as always, brother. We will talk soon. I'm glad you're growing, and I hope that you continue to grow and get that message out there. Folks, you know the drill over here. It is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I do hope you consider supporting the broadcast. $5, $10, $15 means the world to me. The links are down below. As always, guys, I love you, and we will see you all on the flip side.